In this video, we are going to practice finding the value of a trig function given the value of a different trig function and the quadrant. So first of all, this part of the information is telling us what quadrant we're in. Between pi and 3 pi, you can see that we are dealing with the third quadrant. Did I say 3 pi? Between pi and 3 pi over 2, that's the third quadrant. So your first job is to go ahead and draw a picture of the third quadrant, okay, here between pi and 3 pi over 2. Now we will draw our triangle into this quadrant like so, all right, and then draw the triangle featuring the reference angle right here against the x-axis. Cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine function. Okay, in terms of x, y, and r, sine is the y value divided by the radius. So cosecant is going to be the radius divided by the y value. So when I look at this -7 over 3, I'm thinking, all right, I am going to get the radius is going to come from the numerator, and the y value is going to come from the denominator. Now, the radius cannot be negative. So that means this -7 over 3 must be 7 over -3 in terms of radius and y value. All right, so that tells me that the radius is 7, and the y value is -3. Now, in order to find the tangent, I'm going to need to find the x value. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to use the Pythagorean Theorem to find the x value. So it's going to go x squared plus y squared is equal to radius squared. So that's going to be x squared plus 9 is equal to 49. Subtracting 9 from both sides leaves me with x squared is equal to 40. Taking the square root of both sides, don't forget your plus or minus, that's going to equal, x is going to equal plus or minus, and 40 is 4 times 10. So that helps me to see that this is plus or minus 2 radical 10. So that is my x value. So I can go ahead and put that here. So this will be 2 radical 10. Now I can go back and find the tangent. So the tangent, which is going to be y over x. Okay, so the tangent is going to be -3 over 2 radical 10. All right, so this is one form of the answer, but we should probably rationalize the denominator, which I could do by multiplying the numerator and denominator by radical 10. So that's going to give me tangent is equal to -3 radical 10 over 20. And the way I got that 20 is because radical 10 times radical 10 is just 10. So 2 times radical 10 times radical 10, okay, is really just 2 times 10, and that's where I got the 20. Okay, let's take a look at number 8. We are between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. They are describing the fourth quadrant, so let's go ahead and draw a picture of that. So here we are between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. Okay, so here comes the triangle. Ba-boom. All right, and we have the x, the y, and the radius. Now, cosine is the x value divided by the radius. So the x value must be 6. So I'll go ahead and put the 6 right here. The radius must be 19. So I'll put that right there. And now we will be looking for the y value. As I do this, understand, will this y value be positive or negative? This has to be negative because it's going down. So it's going to be up to me to choose the negative y value when I do the Pythagorean theorem. So according to the Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus y squared should equal the radius squared, but let me put 19 squared. So that's going to be 36 plus y squared. I'm forgetting what this is right now. Oh, 361. So I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides. So now I have y squared is equal to 325. If I take the square root of both sides, I'm going to have plus or minus. So I have y is equal to plus or minus. Now 325, see the 25 here? This is going to be divisible by 25. So if you divide 325 by 25, it turns out to go in 13 times. So this is 25 times 13, which means that this is plus or minus 5 radical 13. Now, as I said, the y value has to be negative, so I'm going to go ahead and call this negative 5 radical 13. So that is my y value, negative 5 radical 13. So now I can use that to find the sine function. So sine is y over r. So sine theta is going to equal negative 5 radical 13 over 19. And that's it. All right, between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, that is the fourth quadrant. So let's go ahead and draw a diagram of the fourth quadrant. And let's go ahead and draw a triangle into the fourth quadrant against the x-axis. Now, tangent is y over x. So I've got this negative though, so that means this is either negative 1 over positive 3 or it's positive 1 over negative 3. I have to decide which one it is. Well, let's see. This x value, is this going to be positive or negative? This should be positive because it's going to the right. Meanwhile, the y value should be negative because it's going down. So I'm going to look at this as negative 1 over positive 3. So the y value is negative 1. The x value is positive 3. That will make sense for the fourth quadrant. So now I need to find out what is the radius, which is always positive. So Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus y squared is going to equal the radius squared. So 9 plus 1, so 10 is equal to the radius squared. So the radius will equal the square root of 10. Okay, so now cosine. Well, cosine is x over r. So when I go to do the cosine, that should be 3 over radical 10. Now I could rationalize the denominator. So that would give me a cosine of 3 radical 10 over 10. Okay, just two versions of the same answer. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into number 10. Between pi over 2 and pi, they are describing the second quadrant. So let's draw our diagram over here. Okay, so here we are in the second quadrant. Draw your triangle to the x-axis. Cosine. Cosine is x over r. And I need to decide which one of these is actually negative, the 1 or the 7. The radius is always positive, so we know that it must be the 1 that is negative. So we have a negative x value, all right, negative 1 x value. The radius is 7, all right, the radius is always positive. That leaves the y value that we need to find. Now, is this y value negative or positive? Because it is up, we know this will be positive. So when we do the Pythagorean theorem, be sure to put a positive y value. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem, x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. So 1 plus y squared is equal to 49. Subtracting the 1, y squared is equal to 48. Taking the square root of both sides, okay, this would be plus or minus radical 48. 48 is 16 times 3. So this is plus or minus, and this is 16 times 3. The square root of 16 is 4, of course, so this is 4 radical 3. I'm going to go ahead and drop the plus or minus because we know this has to be positive. So 4 radical 3. All right, so the y value is 4 radical 3. Now we can find anything. So cotangent is x over y, all right, the reciprocal of tangent. So cotangent is going to be x over y. All right, and we should rationalize the denominator by multiplying each of these by radical 3. So that will give me a cotangent, which is equal to negative radical 3 over radical 3 times radical 3 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. So this would be the answer to number 10.